friends of the internet, did you just watch the Beijing Winter Olympics and cried at how freaking beautiful Yuzuru Hanyu is, and then you start wondering, how the hell does he do all that? And then you start wondering, is there any potential that I myself can do some of that cool spinny spin stuff too on the ice? And the answer is yes, you can, but maybe don't attempt Yuzuru Hanyu's quad axel on the first day on the ice. Welcome to the ultimate guide for anyone who wants to start figure skating for the first time, especially those who start later on in life, aka adult skaters. I will be discussing everything from how to find the right coaches for lessons, to what skates do I buy as a beginner, to work-life balance with figure skating as an adult, to can I compete for the US Federation, and how long does it take to see progress, because there is so much to adult figure skating and so little information out there. I just want to put a video out there like this detailing everything from my 4 years of experience as an adult figure skater. I know there's a lot of people trying to learn how to figure skate, but honestly figure skating is one of the most inaccessible sports, which is the downside of figure skating. I started skating approximately around the time Pyeongchang Winter Olympics came around back in 2018. Holy crap, 2018 sounds like eons ago because of the pandemic. What better time than to drop this during the Winter Olympics season? Peak season for new people to get inspired to try something new. Anyways, onto information that is actually useful to all of you. The first thing I want to talk about is how do you find the right skates and blades as a beginner? Because honey, I'm going to tell you right now that rental skates are not going to cut it. They give zero ankle support. So what I recommend you to do when you first start skating is getting a not so expensive starter pair of skates. My starter skates are literally purchased on Amazon. They're called the Jackson Ultima Mystique with the Mark II blades. Typically, when you get more advanced in figure skating, you buy the boot and the blade separately, and then you have someone professionally mount it. But for a starter skate like this one, the blade is already pre-mounted, so it's pretty easy. So those are the skates that I learned how to skate on for the first 4 months of my journey, where literally all I did was learn how to go forwards, backwards, crossovers, basic edges, not really any jumps, not really any spins. And around the 4-month mark, one of my coaches saw my skates and my blades, and she was like, no, those are not going to cut it. So I got a pair of what I would call my intermediate skates, which is this model called the Jackson Debuts. We'll put everything in the description down below so you guys know which exact products I am talking about. This video is not sponsored by Jackson or Adidas or any sort of figure skating sport company. I honestly wish they would sponsor this video because figure skating equipment is so freaking expensive. But anyway, I got this separate blade from Jackson as well, and they're called the Legacy blade. When I transitioned into my intermediate skates, I wanted something that could give me enough ankle support for basic jumps. So nothing too fancy, but at least I will be able to safely do things like a waltz jump, a toe loop, a salchow, like your very basic single jumps, as well as be able to have a blade that is good enough for me to be able to do a scratch spin, a 2-foot spin, a 1-foot spin. When you get your first intermediate pair of skates, I definitely recommend going to an actual skate shop, because there will likely be specialists that can help you find the right boot for you. What they actually did is they did a heat mold of my feet and like put the skates on you, and then they like stick your feet in this oven, or no, I don't think they stick your feet in the oven, my bad. They put the skates in the oven and then they make you wear it and just like sit there for like 20 minutes or something as the skates like mold into the shape of your feet. Pro tip, if you go into a pro shop and they try to sell you like something like super expensive, like in the 700, 800 range, and they try to like market these like really advanced blades to you, they're probably trying to upsell the hell out of you. Because when you first start out, you literally don't need that expensive of equipment, because you're not trying to do these quads or triples or doubles even that require that stiff of a boot for ankle support, for safe landing and impact. And also like the blades that are really expensive are super lightweight, and they're also thinner in terms of the shape of the blade. So you might actually find it harder to spin or learn how to spin properly if you buy blades that are way too advanced for you. So my more advanced skates, the one that I have right now, I pivoted to about after a year and a half into my adult figure skating journey, and I currently have the Adidas Concertos, which I actually really like, and I actually still have the same blade. I saved a lot of money by just keeping the same blades, because honestly, like, I don't need a more advanced blade for what I'm trying to do at the moment. So I looked up the retail price of this online, and it says it's like $649. Mine, when I got them, was definitely not that expensive. I got it through the rink that I skated at, and there was a pro shop within that rink, and I'm sure like they have like special discounts for like certain rinks and whatnot. So sometimes like ask around and see where the cheapest place to find these skates are, because a lot of times they're way cheaper than the listed price online. And these pair of skates have lasted me for so long. I've been skating with these for like 2.5 years. The reason why I switched to these ones is my Jackson debuts actually wore out. Because you bend your ankle so much when you're skating, it actually stopped giving my ankle that much support. So I actually injured my ankle slightly when I was trying to do a loop because my skates just didn't support my ankle enough. Last thing I want to discuss is breaking into your boot. So this is something that nobody tells you. When you first get a new boot, it will feel very uncomfortable and it will feel very, very stiff. And that is totally normal because skates are designed to help protect your ankle. But for someone who is a beginner, I'm already, like when I started, I was literally as stiff as a stick because you're just not used to and comfortable being on the ice. My skates are so tight around my ankles that I feel like I literally cannot bend my ankles or my knees. And when you first start skating, your coach is probably going to be like, you need to bend your ankles and bend your knees. You will feel more comfortable after like 2 weeks of skating in your new skates. So what I would do is actually this like jumping exercise. You can just hold on to the side of the rink to help break into your skates. And the one thing here that I wish I did differently is I wish I started with Adeas instead of Jacksons. Adeas are designed to kind of have like a feel where you don't really need to break into them. Like in my opinion, you still do a little, but they're not as stiff initially as like Jacksons, Rydell's, or some of the other brands that are designed to be broken into. So that's the reason why I like Adeas better. And the rose gold is just A+. Number 2, actually learning how to do the damn thing. Lessons. Most skating lessons are private lessons, which is kind of annoying because they are a bit expensive. I would say skating is one of those things where it's so technical that you actually do need someone to look at you and tell you what is right and what is wrong to make sure, 1, you don't develop bad habits, and 2, you don't hurt yourself. It's not even something like dance when you have a mirror and you can see yourself and see what you're doing, especially when you first start. You don't really have that strong mind-body connection. At least I didn't. Like literally I would do something and it would feel amazing and I was like, oh my god, I'm doing the thing. And then I would film myself and I was like, whoa, that definitely does not look like what I thought I was doing. That leg is ugly, that toe is not pointed. I was like, oh Jesus Christ. And that is like the story of my skating career. There are other alternatives that are maybe more financially viable. There's like a program called Learn to Skate where it's kind of like a group skating program that is several weeks long, tailored for beginner skaters of all ages. But oftentimes those are huge group sessions and you don't really get the individualized attention that you need when you first start skating. And also you don't pick the coaches in these large group sessions and they could be very hit or miss. So a question that I got a lot in past skating videos that I have done before, such as my training for 30 days like an Olympian video and also in my adult figure skating competition video, is how many times I take lessons per week or how many times I practice per week. So currently at my current stage where I am competing, I take about 2 to 3 lessons per week with 3 different coaches, and each lesson is 25 minutes long for me. You can take hour-long lessons, but honestly when you first start skating you don't really need that much, and also like lessons are so expensive. What I felt was useful for me is I would just take a 30-minute lesson and I would take more time to actually practice those skills myself, because when you first start a lot of it is just like getting that self-intuition feeling of I'm getting the hang of how this feels, and you don't really need that much instruction. Like they can tell you what to do, but until you figure out like what that actually feels for your body, it doesn't make sense to take lessons to learn more advanced stuff in such a haste. Also, when I first started, for the first like year, I only took lessons from just one single coach because that was all I needed. But today, in terms of my lessons, I take from 3 different coaches. So my first lesson is with my all-around coach for just all things technical. So we cover jumps, we cover spins, we cover things called moves in the field, which is basically everything in skating that is not a jump and not a spin. Then I will do 1 lesson on choreography and edges. This coach really helps me with just like my skating skills and also choreographing my programs for competitions and, you know, do all the refining and the artistic touches. And the last coach I take from is a jump specialist to help me train my axle. A jump specialist is someone that I only started working with probably around like when I was like 3 years into my skating journey, when I first started to learn how to jump an axle. I like to train my axle on a harness. So there is a more recent like training technique, which is using a pole harness, which literally looks like you're being fished on a fishing pole, which is kind of funny, but it allows you to have a better feel of what the jump will feel like. There's not a lot of coaches out there that have the arm strength to pull a large person like me, because it's easy to pull, you know, like a 5-year-old, 6-year-old little kid on a harness and make them jump because they literally defy gravity because they're like, I don't know, like 50 pounds. But if you're trying to lug me, a huge adult, it really takes someone who, you know, has enough arm strength to do that. The third thing I want to talk about is how to find a coach and how to find the right coach for you as a beginner. Typically, when you look up the website of the closest rink near you, they will have a figure skating section where they will list the coaches that all work at that rink, and they usually have some sort of bio. A lot of times you will see like their credentials in terms of PSA ratings, which stands for Professional Skaters Association. Keep this in mind, credentials aren't everything, because a lot of what it takes to find a good coach is more so how that coach helps you understand how to do the thing and coaches you in the right way. Honestly, I think one of the best ways to figure out which coaches are good at your rink is to start skating there and make skating friends, whether that is other adult skaters. Usually people in the skating community are pretty friendly. Like, try to strike up a conversation with some of these people who regularly go to that rink, because they would likely have a lot more intel on who's a good coach to work with. Another good way is to go to the rink and honestly like practice and kind of analyze what type of skaters do you see these coaches coaching. Do they reflect who you are, who you want to be? Does that skater look like my body type? Then you can maybe use that to drive towards your decision as well. So there's 3 things I mainly look for in terms of looking for a coach. 1 is technical brilliance. 2 is the mental and emotional support connection. And 3 is their coaching style. So first is, of course, do they have the technical ability to give you good habits, because the worst is having a coach that develops poor foundations for you. And also, this is something really important to keep in mind. A good coach for little kids may not be a good coach for an adult. There are some coaches who just literally don't know how to work with an adult's body. When you're an adult, your body is different. When it comes to like the jump technique, you have to find someone that knows how to coach someone with an adult body instead of just like coaching kids with a lot of pre-rotation. Cafeteria cough. The second thing is the emotional and mental connection. And I mean this in a couple of ways. Like, 1, of course, are they supportive? Are they nice? But more so, do they respect you as a person and care about you as a skater and care about your goals? Some coaches don't take adult figure skaters seriously, and they don't think your goals are real, and that's the worst part. The last thing that I look for is in terms of coaching style, and this is more of a mixed bag for me because I tend to like both. Some coaches are more intensive, some are more casual, so depending on what kind of style you like, one might be suited better for you. Typically, if you have like a Russian coach, they're really hard technically on you, and I honestly really like that because I am kind of like an intensive type A person, so I do like someone who, you know, like gets down to business and like cracks down on like all the little things I'm doing wrong and strives for perfection. But at the same time, I've also worked with some other great coaches that are, you know, more relaxed. They tend to like make more conversation, and that's also great. Like, I don't mind that. For some people, like the whole like Russian shebang is way too much and you're gonna feel like, oh, I'm gonna feel like defeated after working with this coach. Like, definitely don't do that. It all depends on you, on what coaching style works for you. Okay, 4th thing I want to talk about is ring time and how to practice. When you first start getting into figure skating, you will start realizing that you need ice to practice. But usually at any rink, there are 2 types of session. There's something called the freestyle session and the regular public or general session. So you're probably already familiar with the public session, which is basically the sessions that you will go to when you and your friends are just like, hey, like, let's go ice skating for fun. And freestyle sessions are sessions that are specifically catered for figure skaters. So let me discuss the pros and cons of both. Usually the pros of a freestyle session is obviously it is made for figure skating, and therefore there are only figure skater on the ice. And the ice is much smoother because it doesn't get destroyed by hockey players, little kids, crazy people, all that kind of good stuff. The con is it's typically a little bit more expensive, and it could be intimidating for someone who is just starting to get into skating. When I first started figure skating, I stayed on a public session for maybe like 3 months before I went to a freestyle session. When we first started skating, it's actually quite good to learn on a public session because there's less pressure and you don't feel intimidated by all these really good skaters doing all these crazy things around you. But also, it's probably the wise thing to do from a safety perspective. Until you learn how to stop, aka accelerate and decelerate appropriately, it's actually not as safe for you to be on a freestyle session, because even though these people are figure skaters and they know how to stop and they know how to watch out for you and like look behind their back, you still run into the risk that if you don't know how to stop, then you don't know how to protect yourself. That is just something to be aware of. But also, with that said, once you're ready, don't be afraid to be on a freestyle session, even if you're an adult skater. Like, you should feel totally accepted. Anyone giving you weird looks, like, screw them. You're clearly just like being rude and mean. Because once you know the basics, like, anyone should be able to belong on a freestyle session given the restriction of that session, because some rinks do separate it out where you have to be a certain skill level to be on a certain session due to just like the intensity of how some people train. But if you're on a session that is open to everyone, you should not feel intimidated to sign up, and you should definitely not feel embarrassed to skate on a freestyle session, because everyone starts somewhere. That's all part of the process, and you just have to mentally get through that. So the pros about a public session is that it's cheaper and it's more chill, and that's about it. The cons are it is often super crowded and it's filled with a bajillion scary little boys in hockey skates zooming around at like a bajillion miles per hour, and you feel like you're about to die every second because they might run into you. But one piece of advice for beginner skaters who are trying to save money is you can actually practice a lot of small things in a public session still. A big piece of learning how to skate at the beginning is just practicing and drilling down really small movements that will eventually build up into you learning how to skate better. I remember when I first started skating, I literally did not know how to do a 2-foot turn. Like, it felt so uncomfortable for me. What I would do is just go to a public session, like take like literally the smallest patch of ice by the boards, and I would just twist back and forth, holding onto the boards just to get the feeling of what a turn feels like. And then when I first started learning 3 turns, my 3 turns sucked ass. And I would do like 53 turns on the left side, 53 turns on the right side, and that honestly builds up to so much. Another question I get from my viewers a lot is how often I practice. When I first started skating, I probably averaged 4 to 5 times a week, and I would probably skate 2 to 4 hours at a time, depending on the day and how much time I have. My current schedule with work is that I typically skate 3 to 4 times a week, usually 3 times during the weekday. So I get up before work in the morning at 6 a.m. It's always good to have a plan of, you know, what you want to practice in that time. Typically, you do like a warm-up. I'll probably warm up for about like 10 minutes where I just do lines of edge exercises around the rink. So that would mean things like cross rolls and alternating crossovers. And then I would get into jumps, and then I would spin, and then I would pick something that I'm technically struggling with. Like, for the longest time, my backspin was absolute crap. So I would just take a portion of a session and I would tell myself, I'm going to take these 10 minutes, only do backspins for that period of time. And I feel like that really helps me be disciplined. You're always going to want to do the things that you're good at because it feels great, you look great doing it, but you really do need to do things that you don't love doing in order to be better at the sport holistically. So I would just like force myself to do these things that like I'm not the biggest fan of, but I know I eventually need to learn how to do. So the last portion, I would just do more of like the choreography stuff and running a program. So this is not until like later when you actually need to compete and test and all that kind of good stuff that we'll talk about later. That's basically practicing your whole competition performance and will grow to build up stamina and be able to do the entire thing from finish to end without feeling like you're about to die. So the next thing I'm going to discuss, I think I'm on number 5, I've lost count by this point, is the USFSA membership and clubs. So the US Skating Federation is the USFSA. Almost every city or every rink has like a club associated with it. So when I first started skating, I was part of the Philadelphia Skating Club. But since I have moved to New York, I am part of the New York Figure Skating Club. If you want to test and compete, you need to be part of a club, and then you also need to be a member of the US Skating Federation. So you kind of just pay these 2 fees, and it sucks, but that's how it's structured. The next thing I'm going to talk about is testing. Testing is one of the most confusing things in my opinion. What testing is it's the rite of passage to compete. So there's all these individual levels from pre-preliminary all the way to senior, which is the people who compete at the Olympic and national level. So like the Mariah Bells and the Karen Chens and the Nathan Chens of the world. For each of those levels, they post guidelines on their website that I believe are accessible to the general public. Each level has a different set of elements or things that you have to perform in a specific way in front of judges. Your rinks will have like testing dates. Like every month, like on this Wednesday, they will have a formal testing session. Judges judge you based on whether they think you're qualified to pass, and then they pass fail you, just like any test that you would take in a actual like academic setting. To break it down, there's 2 types of tests. There's a moves in the field test, and there's a free skate test. This is where it gets real confusing. Every level has those 2 tests. You have to first pass the moves in the field test in order to take the free skate test. And moves in the field is your basic skating skills, stroking, crossovers, turns, edges. Your free skate test is actually a program, choreographed with music, and you have these set of elements that you have to do. There's also 2 different tracks of tests. There's a regular track and there's an adult track. Regular track is catered for basically everyone, from little kids to adults too. They're the ones that range from pre-preliminary to senior. Started skating, I tested the normal track, took my pre-preliminary and preliminary moves into fields test, but that translates and equals to an moves into fields test for adult pre-bronze and bronze. I took my first test probably 2 years into my skating journey. The piece of advice that I have here is only test when you're ready. Like, these judges are very picky. Every time you test, you have to register and you pay a fee. So if you fail, you have to pay a fee again and do the thing again. So if you're not in a hurry to compete or pass a certain level because you need to qualify for a competition, you shouldn't test until you feel super comfortable. So the next thing is competition. There are official US Federation sanctioned competitions for adults. There's regionals for adults and there's also national. For me, I will actually be competing in an upcoming competition, which is the US Eastern Sectional. And then in April, there will be national. The testing events and the competition events basically go 1-to-1. So if you tested, for example, for me, for adult bronze, I will be competing in the adult bronze event. Every single competition level will have a specific set of requirements, meaning you can choose any song you want, but it has to be like a certain duration, like 1 minute 40 seconds max. There's penalties if you go overtime or undertime. And then there'll also be like a set of elements, like they're like, oh, you have to do 4 jumps and you have to do 2 spins of different nature. Just basically means like 2 spins with like different positions. You need a step sequence that covers like half of the ice. And again, this is more in advanced stages. Like, you don't have to worry about this if you're starting skating for the very first time. Honestly, a better resource would probably be my first competition as an adult figure skater video, because that details more of like the entire competition experience. I am posting a video soon that documents my adult sectionals journey, so that will probably help give some more flavor and context. So the next thing I want to talk about is how to financially manage skating. If you have been watching this video thus far and your attention has not drifted off somewhere else, then you have probably already sussed out that figure skating is goddamn expensive. It really sucks because it makes it really inaccessible to anyone who wants to, you know, get involved in the sport. We need more people of color in skating. We don't see that many people of color representing the US at the Olympics. I just wish that anyone who wants to figure skate could be able to figure skate. When I first started skating, like, the financial part of it was really tough for me because I was literally a student that just graduated college with a bunch of student debt. So there are a lot of creative ways to get around this. Sessions for outdoor pop-up rinks during the holidays tend to be cheaper. Also, sometimes what I see people doing is, if you have another friend who's also interested in learning how to skate, do a private lesson together and split the cost. Like, some coaches are okay with taking 2 people and having them split the cost. It became a lot more heavy on learning how to save properly and make sacrifices, which a lot of times means that I won't be eating out as much as all of my friends are. I would not be partaking in social expenses such as going out, because I know that figure skating is something that is more important to me. Pretty much learned how to cook all my meals. I really don't eat out. That honestly has saved me a lot of money, and especially living in New York where it's so expensive, it really helps me, you know, have more of a budget to cater towards something that I'm passionate about. So the next thing I want to discuss is work-life balance with figure skating. If you're an adult trying to work a full-time job and skate, it is very tough. I think one of the first pieces of advice that I have is definitely communicate with your work. Just like anyone else would set boundaries for anything else in their personal life, you should be able to feel comfortable to do that, hopefully, with your company as well. And not all companies have a great culture. For me, I work a corporate job as a strategy consultant, aka business consultant, or whatever you call that field. And typically our hours are very tough. Before the pandemic, we would travel Monday through Thursdays. We're never home. Hours revolve around clients' schedule. What I find the most difficult is finding the courage to advocate for yourself, which is something one of my older roommates have taught me, is because especially in corporate America, if you don't advocate for yourself, like, no one else is going to advocate for you, your interest, and how you want to live and balance your life and live a healthy life. The second thing is setting a schedule for yourself. So there's not as much brain power that needs to go into figuring out when you're gonna skate, how long you're gonna skate. For me, sticking to a schedule helps me just know like which days I need to go skating. Check. Like, I don't have to think about that on top of like my existing work. Also, be very good about knowing how to work this into your schedule. For me, because I do have to fit this in before work and get up at 6 a.m., I have to have a really good bedtime schedule, and that is something that I struggle with a lot because theoretically speaking, I should be asleep at at 10 a.m. and which means I should be in bed by 9:30, but realistically speaking, I'm in bed by like 10:30 and I really fall asleep at like 11:15ish. Figure out a good balance of what days typically work better for you to incorporate skating in. So for me, for my job, for example, like in consulting, Fridays are typically a little bit more chill than, for example, like a Monday. So a Monday, instead of skating, I would do like some sort of conditioning workout at the gym or some sort of off-ice training. Another thing is finding time on the weekends within your weekend plans to go skating. As an adult, it is hard because it feels like on the weekdays you can't do anything but work and you have to fit everything into your weekends. I've started going to Prospect Park on the weekends, which has really affordable sessions and quite good ice in the morning. It is a bit of a trek, but it allows me to fit something. Things that I want to talk about is motivation, mental strength, and progress. The first thing that I want you to understand is that progress is slow, but that is completely normal, and you just have to keep cracking at it little by little until you get something. It literally took me 1 month to figure out how to wiggle my butt to move backwards. It took me probably about 3 months to feel anything remotely comfortable doing crossovers because every time I crossed my feet, I thought I was gonna trip and die. It took me at least 3 to 4 months to figure out how to feel comfortable doing a 2-foot spin, how to do the most basic jump, a waltz jump. It took me a year to get my flip and my lutz. I remember training my loop and I was like, I am never gonna be able to do this jump. This jump is so hard. I just can't figure it out. Like, I feel like I'm gonna trip over my ankles every time I try it. I just kept cracking at it, and one day it just clicked and I was just like, I can do this. Never write off the possibility of you being able to do something. And for my axle, it's still going. I still can't land my axle, and I've been skating for 4 years. And also, these numbers I'm giving you is just to provide context in how long progress takes. And if you need to take longer than that, that's totally normal. You go at whatever pace. As long as you're making progress in a way that fulfills your personal goals, that's A+ in your books. When you first start skating, it's not realistic to look like what you see on NBC Sports, but that doesn't mean that you could skate with much better quality in the future. It's tough as an adult to start skating because it's not like little kids where they don't fully understand the fear of falling yet. But when you're an adult, you understand that if I do this, I might fall, and if I fall, I might hurt myself. So then it becomes a mental block of fear as well that you have to learn how to get over. Alright, we have finally reached the end of this video. I know this was a ton of information. Hopefully this helps people get more accessibility to information about figure skating. Please like, comment, and subscribe if you want to see more content similar to this. I will most likely be posting some sort of documentary of my progress and my journey to compete in the Eastern Sectionals coming up, so definitely look out for that video. And also, if there's any questions that you have about adult skating, please drop them down below. Always happy to reply. I read through almost every single comment that flows through my videos and try my best to reply to them. If you guys leave enough questions down below, maybe I will look at them and create a Q&A video for adult figure skating. Thank you so much from the bottom of my heart for watching this video. Figure skating is something that means a lot to me, and hopefully this can help you start your journey as well. With that said, I'll talk to you guys next time. Bye!